I think. Good. Okay. I'm just gonna jam for a minute. Um, over E major progression. Using E major and minor. I'll talk as I go too, just so you know what I'm doing. Mostly pentatonics. I'm gonna say I'm gonna cover my A here. Pentatonics and diatonics. I'm spelling my pen. Diatonics. Morning. Diatonics. Okay. Scales. Oops. So kind of doing the whole like this is George Benson, kind of like breezing George Benson progression. So I'm using major pentatonics in G, the key that we've been working on. Can you hear that? These are all major pentatonics. Okay, and the progression is basically just D major 7, B minor 7, E minor 7, and then kind of a E, G over A. Now I'm going to go to minor. Check this out. And I can go back and forth between major and minor, but that's the minor. So I played the G shaped major pentatonic, go up 3 frets, it automatically becomes D minor. Back to the major. Back to the minor. I'm going to just move this one up 3 frets. All right. I wish I paid $5 for this. Back to major. Here's the D form. Again, I'm sticking with pentatonics for now. Now minor. You hear the guitar and the... Oh, yeah, I'm hearing that video is not great right now. I hear that they're kind of dropping down the resolution. Well, also, hold on. I'm uploading a new video, so maybe that's screwing it up. Let me turn that. I'll just stop uploading. I'll upload later. Oh, good. The audio. Can you hear both the guitar and the track? So yeah, you can hear when I go to the minor, right? Now major. It's kind of like I'm playing for this. It's like live jazz club music for a singles chat room right now. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to do some diatonic scales, so I'm going to play 7-note scales. This is the new one we're going to learn today. Here's the one we learned yesterday. can tell I'm a George Benson fan. Oh, did it get better? Okay, yeah, it's because I was uploading a video at the same time. So that's my bad. I'm sorry. I thought about that, and I was like 65% uploaded for the new video. And the new video is, I'll try to post it today at 2. I just have to upload it, and I gotta do the tags and all that stuff. It's the review of the cheap the Harmony Bobcat. I did a review of that like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, and I'm just uploading it today. And one great thing about that is it's a cheap vintage guitar. So if you want to have some cool old guitars, it's a cheap one to get, and it's also really small for it's short scale, small. It's smaller neck for small hands. So it's a great little guitar to kind of have around. It sounds pretty darn good too. You'll hear it in the video, so I'll do that. Can you show the Benson octaves with a fifth in the middle? You mean like the I don't know that he would do that very often. He would do octaves, but he would do the third in the middle. He would do that a lot. He would do that a lot. So basically, I'm playing an octave like this, and then I'm putting a major or minor third, depending, harmonized. So in the key of D would be like this. You really only have to learn 2 shapes for that. But then he would slide them in chromatic kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool. Okay. Wow, 30 people already. Everybody doing well? Somebody asked how I'm doing with cabin fever. We just got back from a 4-mile walk, so I'm feeling good right now. We walked all the way down to CSUN, CSUN stands for Cal State University Northridge. So we walked down to the campus and back, which is about 4 miles, and practically could walk in the streets because there's no cars out there. Young, Gary, Kathy, Bent, boy, Verdi, everybody, Michelle, Jim. A lot of people, the regulars are here. Oh, here's a new one, Erasmus Hassenpepper. Nice. That's a great name. That's like the greatest name. Diane, good to see you. Let's see, Gary, okay. Everybody, okay. And then MSG Flava is new. And you're the one that asked about the octave thing. Maybe I'll touch on that later. Yeah, and somebody posted the other day, and I don't necessarily disagree with this. I started on acoustic. My first guitar was like a 3/4 size nylon. So like a little smaller classical guitar. I was 9 years old. And then my second guitar, I bought myself when I was 11, and it was a K, which is not a very good brand, 12-string, which is not a very easy guitar to play. And I'll tell you what, I almost quit playing guitar because of that guitar. Now, I bought it because I really, really liked John Denver. In fact, people always told me I looked like John Denver. My first concert at age 13 was John Denver at Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. I went with my mom. Would have been 1974. And people were like pointing at me, "Hey, it's John Denver," because I had the same glasses. I wasn't trying to look like him, but I just kind of looked like him a little bit. I think it's the high cheekbones, and which are a little lower now than they used to be. So but the 12-string was like, it almost killed me. And then my next guitar was at 13. I got a Ibanez 175 copy, hollow body jazz guitar copy, because I was going to get into jazz guitar, and I really thought, okay, I need to get a jazz guitar. So that was my first electric, and I still have that one. It's still I still have it. So usually I used to have it hanging up behind me. If you look at my old videos, you can see it hanging behind me, the 175. It's blonde. Yeah, you imagine that. Ultimately, the 12-string I gave away, but ultimately I think I ended up taking 6 strings off and just using it like a 6-string acoustic. but then it was a 6-string acoustic with a really wide neck and really bad action. It was, like I said, it was a K, so it had a really warped neck, and so playing up here not only was almost impossible, it was also out of tune. So that's a real big problem. But my point being that I read somewhere, and I don't disagree with this, that it's almost better to start on acoustic anyway because it builds up hand strength. Because you can set up an electric guitar. I mean, I've got some of them. This guitar plays really easy. I've played some electrics that just had a feather touch. You barely touch the string, and you're fretting a note. So almost gives you kind of an unrealistic sense of how easy the guitar is going to be to play. And then when you go pick up an acoustic, you're like, wait a minute, this is much harder. So not a bad idea to start on acoustic. But if you're really struggling and you're having a hard time making headway and learning things on acoustic, you could switch to electric if your hands are weaker. If ultimately, if that's all you want to play, you could also just go right to electric. It's true. It's just like any exercise. When you bench press 200 pounds and then you go bench press 150 pounds, 150 pounds feels light when it used to feel heavy. So it's kind of like that thing where, well, if you've been, you've done curls, with 50-pound weights or 20-pound whatever, and then you go and do curls after without anything in your hand. It's like, whoa. Or it's the same thing when you've been jumping on a trampoline, and then actually it's the opposite on that. Then you go jump on the ground. It's like, oh, this is hard. So yeah, jumping on a trampoline is like playing electric, and then jumping on the ground is like playing acoustic, I guess it would be the comparison there. So so what we've been talking about, and what I'm going to continue to talk about for the next 25 minutes or so, is we're going to stick with our whole CAGED method thing. And if you're new here, the CAGED method is, again, and it's always good, especially, I don't mind repeating it because I know for me, I have to hear something many, many times before sometimes it sinks in. So the CAGED method is just the order in which the open chord shapes appear on the fretboard as you go up the neck. So like if I were to play a C chord, the next C chord shape looks like an A chord, the next C chord shape looks like a G chord, the next C chord looks like an E chord, the next C chord looks like a D chord. So those are all C chords, but it looks like C, A, G, E, D, spelling the word CAGED. So that applies if I start on G. The next one after G is going to be the E shape. The next one after the E is going to be there's a G chord that's a D shape. Here's the C. It's going to be the same order. It might not spell out the word CAGED, but it'll be in the same order letters. And that way you can really start to, the fretboard will reveal itself. You'll start to see shapes and patterns. You'll start to, it'll be easier to learn pentatonics. I'm going to hold up the pentatonic. I'll show you here's the, get your screen cap ready if you haven't gotten a shot of this, but this is the 5 major pentatonic scales. Those circles, those are the lowest D notes. These are all D pentatonic shapes using the different forms. So you see the C form, the E form, the G form, the D form, the A form, etc. Okay. Now, I like this. This diagram is really cool. And if you haven't taken a picture of this one, you do that. This is another screenshot. This is all 5 of them. Actually, I did 6. I did the C form twice. So you can see how they're all connected and they share sides. So if you learn the A form, you've already learned half of the G form. If you learn the G form, you've learned half of the E form, and so on and so forth. Okay. Like I said, if you learn the A form, you learned 6 of the notes you're going to need for the G form, and so on and so forth. So that, I love to see things laid out on the fretboard. And looking at pentatonic shapes is a little bit more wide open. If I do this, I will probably do this with the diatonic shapes. And here's the diatonic shape from yesterday, and here's the new one for today, the A form. And this one's going to be basically at the 4th fret, but we're going to have to shift to the 5th fret on the 2nd string. So we are going to move a little bit, but you can get a good shot of that. So the C form one, the top one, is the one we did yesterday, and the A form one is the one we're going to do today. And you can see, I don't know if you can tell, there's a circle there on the D note, and there's an X where the B is. So the B would be the B minor root, and the circle would be the D major root. No one's typing because everybody's screen capping. You can totally crop out my face. I take no offense to that. I'm going to turn on this light. Hold on. That's a little better. I don't want it to fall on me. I'm just going to leave it like it is. That's good. That's better. I think probably got too much light behind me. That's not bad. It looks pretty good. Is the streaming better now that I stopped uploading? The buffering is better? That was my fault. That wasn't on your end. I think that was on my end. Oh, Ben, you made it though. We're not too far. And I'll show you the scale again in a second. Okay. So, well, you know what? Here it is again. So this is the scale we're going to do right now. You guys want to do a little warm up? You want to do some warm ups? I'm not going to. Let's do the 1 4 3 4 2 4 3 4 warm up. 1 4 3 4 2 4 3 4 warm up. And again, this is a great exercise that you can do on every fret, on every string. In fact, let's do it on the D string. We usually start on the E string, and I'll do it on the D string. Okay, so you should hit me first fret on the D string. This is a great exercise that primarily works the pinky. Half of those notes are your pinky, and it makes your pinky stronger, and it makes it think that it's going to need to be more available. Okay, kind of messing with your motor memory to force you to kind of keep your pinky out. And again, if you're only playing with 3 fingers mostly, then you're losing 25% of your hand's potential. So, and your reach too will get much better if you bring the pinky in. Okay, let's do this 1, and I'm just going to say finger numbers. I'll tell you when we're moving up a fret. But 1 4 3 4 2 4 3 4. Up a fret. 1 4 3 4 2 4 3 4. Up a fret. 1 4 3 4 2 4 3 4. And always tune, you know, if you can have a guitar tuned standard, A440 for our lesson, because that's usually what I'm going to be tuned. That's always what I'm going to be tuned to. So, okay, we're at the 4th fret of the 4th string. 1 4 3 4 2 4 3 4. Okay, up another fret. 1 4 3 4 2 4 3 4. Another fret. 1 4 3 4 2 4 3 4. All right, that should be good for now. I'm just gonna stretch out my fingers. There's a little. I went for a long walk just before I started this, so when I walk, the blood tends to go right down to my hands and makes them feel all puffy. So one of the tricks you can do to get rid of that is just raise your hands over your head like this, and it immediately gets all that puffiness out of your hands. It's amazing how quickly that works. And then I've been planning on doing it for the longest time. I've been wanting to do a video where I interview a rheumatologist because of my most popular video is the 7 tips for older beginners. I get a lot of people saying, "Hey, what about, can I play guitar if I have arthritis? Is it going to make it better or worse?" and stuff. And of course, I'm not a doctor. I don't want to give any kind of advice like that. But Kelly, the girl that I write songs with, her dad is a rheumatologist. He's retired, but that's what his specialty was. And he lives up in Sacramento. So I've been planning on for a while, either flying up there or he's down here quite a bit. And I want to sit down and do an interview with him and ask him. I got a million questions to ask him. And even just like what over-counter medicines are good, what kind of, home remedies can you do to kind of alleviate some of the issues of arthritis. And a lot of that stuff, like even soaking your hands and stuff, could be helpful for people that just have, stiff fingers and are having a hard time warming up on the guitar or whatever. I do find that a lot of things like, my my killer finger, that one that everybody hates me for. Okay. And I forgot, I gotta get some, I'm gonna get some playlist available so that I can recommend here. And then the exercise we were just doing together and the one I was just playing, the ridiculous one, that one, those are on my exercise playlist. And I have that here. I'm going to, I'll put a link in here so you can go to these later. Exercises, where are you? Boy, I wish I could separate my playlists from ones that are just like ones that for me and ones that are for everybody. Like a sort feature. Okay, I'll have to find it later. I've got too many playlists. It's the problem is my eyes just scan. Oh, there it is right there. Okay, my eyes just scan right past it. So here's the playlist for finger exercises. And these are designed to help you warm up, but they're also designed to give you dexterity that you are seeking, you want to have. And the killer finger independent one, I think I have 2 versions of those. That one is brutal. There's some other ones up there that are pretty brutal, but the one we were doing together, the 1 4 3 4 2 4 one, that one is up there with the 1 2 3 4 4 3 2 1. And this one is a good one if you want to start working on your right hand picking. And I'll try to come up with some more warm-ups too. They're all generally left-hand warm-ups. I do have an exercise that I call the string skipping exercise, which is like we take pentatonic number 1, like this one. And what I do is I go. So what I'm doing is I'm skipping, like here I'm playing 2 adjacent strings, and then I'm skipping a string, and I'm skipping 2 strings, and I'm skipping 3 strings, and I'm skipping 4 strings. And what that is a workout for is more for this hand, because it's very, very important to have the skill of being able to play this note and then this note and then this note and be able to just hit them randomly whenever you want to. It's pretty hard. Okay, now we're getting to this is the diatonic scale that's on the A form. So this is the A form of the CAGED method. So here's A, played with my, so A is played like this, X, 0, 2, 2, 2, 0. This is A, okay? And then, but what we're gonna play is D, which is gonna be X, 5, 7, 7, 7, 5. Now, if you can't play this chord, that's fine, it's a bar chord. I just need you to visualize it. You can even visualize this note too, because that's part of the pentatonic. So the pentatonic shape that we did over this, no worries. You can watch that, and you can go back. People are going back to watch. I see, I'll see 500 views of those videos within 24 hours, which is crazy. Of course. Yeah, Fish is a great jam band. They're kind of taking up the mantle of they're kind of the new Grateful Dead. Been that way for a long time. Okay, so this is the chord that we're going to be building the scale around. The pentatonic scale again that we did was 5 7 5 7 4 7 4 7 5 7 5 7, and just with that alone, you've got 5 of the 7 notes we're going to need per octave. Okay, so the pentatonic scale has 5 notes per octave. So here's A, B, D, E, F sharp, and then A, B, D, E, F sharp, and then A, B. So it repeats. So it's 5 notes. But a diatonic scale is going to, so the D major pentatonic is D, E, F sharp, A, and B. Okay. But the D major, the D diatonic scale, the D major diatonic is going to be D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp. Okay. So it's 7 letters. With that shape. And well, some people can bend, like I can't bend this finger back, so I can't do, so they used to call this the double bar chord because you could bar this and bar that and get it, but I can't get this. Some people can actually bend their third finger back. I can bend my first finger back. Someone was saying they play A like this, which I've seen. Flamenco players actually play it like this, which is interesting. So the way I'm playing that is I'm barring with my first finger. I'm barring the second finger. I'm sorry, the second fret and of the 4th string and 3rd string, and then I'm just getting my 2nd string with the 2nd finger. I don't know why. I'm not sure why that was a common fingering for flamenco players, but I've noticed that. So, okay, now So here's the diatonic scale. And just so you know, here's the B. This note here is a B, and that's going to be our B minor root. And here's the lowest D in this scale. Okay, I'm going to go real slow. You've got that screen cap, so that might help if you want to cut that out and then put it over here to your to the side of this video. You don't have to go full screen on the video. In fact, you don't want to see me full screen. Jeez, what's wrong with you people? Okay, so we're going to start with our second finger, our middle finger on the 5th fret of the bottom string. That's an A note. Okay, so you can see we're starting this D major scale there, the D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp. We're technically starting the A. I could just show you D to D or B to B, but I want to show you every note in this A form in the scale so that you learn all the notes in that area. Okay, here we go. Second finger, 5th fret, pinky on the 7th fret. Okay, so let's do that again. 5, 7, 5, 7. Okay, next string, we're going to go 4, 5, 7. So first finger on the 4th fret, second finger on the 5th fret, and pinky on the 7th fret. 4, 5, 7. It sounds like 3 Blind Mice, right? No, Frere Jacques. Okay, so we have Frere Jacques right there. So 4, 5, 7, and I'm using my my first, second, and 4th finger. We're going to do the same fingering on the next string. So on the D string, we're going to go 4, 5, 7 again. Okay, so that's a great little snippet that you can practice just like that. That gives you some time on the 1, 2, 4 fingerings. Okay, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. I'm referencing the fingering number there. So index, middle, pinky, index, middle, pinky. Okay, so let's do all of that so far. Okay, and I'm going to give you yes. I'm going to give you. Verdi's already ahead of me on this. I don't want to confuse you, but I know that there are players that are a little higher up the food chain here. So I want to give them some insights that maybe they can be like, oh, wait. Oh, that is cool. Okay. So here's the scale so far. Let's play the first 8 notes that we have so far in the scale. Bottom string, 5th fret, 7th fret. Next string, 4, 5, 7, and then 4, 5, 7. Okay. Now, don't worry, no quiz on this at the end of the week. But what we just played there was an A mixolydian scale. Okay, Verdi was like, okay, so that's basically an A major scale with a flat 7th. So this is not the scale we're learning today, but here's an A major scale. Right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay, but here's what we played. So that's a great scale to use over an A7 chord. Okay, but if we start on the 5th string, so far we have the first 5 notes of the D major scale, which is what key we're really trying to learn right now. So does that help? Yeah, a mixolydian scale, and a mixolydian is just one of our other mode names, and I'm going to do a series on modes. I have a way to teach the modes that I really love, but it's almost like I need a giant white erase board. And so I may go to church and use one of their rooms when all this is over, and we can get into the church again. They have rooms where I can go in there and they have white erase boards. So I can do the lesson. And I can probably do it in 30 minutes. It might be a 30-minute video. It'll be a pretty long video. But it's I found a way to teach it where I feel like it's pretty easy for everyone to understand. So I'd like to do that lesson. Okay, so that's so far we got. Okay, let's go down to we're down to the 3rd string. So I touched my face. We all have to take a drink now. If I touch my face, everybody has to. It's the drinking game. This is just water, and I hate water. Does anybody else hate water? I'm going to tell you a story later. Remind me to tell my Ebola story. Okay, I've got it. I didn't get Ebola. I didn't have nothing like that. But yeah, somebody remind me to tell the Ebola story when I'm done with this lesson. Okay. because I really hate water, and water plays into it. So okay, so we're at the 4th fret with the 1st finger on the 3rd string. Okay, and so now here we're going to do the first time we're going to do the fingering of 1, 3, 4. So we're going to be 1st fret, 6th fret, and then 7th fret. Okay. So if you want to, you could play a D major scale if you start on this note. Here, this is the 5th fret of the 5th string with your 2nd finger, and play the notes we've. Okay, get ready to screen cap. I'm gonna put this up again. Okay, the bottom one is the one we're doing right now. Okay, that circled note is the D, and the X'd note is the B, because the relative minor of D major is B minor. So if you want to play a B minor scale, you start on that. If you want to play a D major scale, you start on the circled note. Okay. So we just did the 1, 3, 4 fingering. Okay. Now we're going to do the 1, 3, 4 fingering again, but we have to move up a fret. Okay. This is one of those scales where we're going to have to move up. And this is going to happen more often. It only happened once in all of those diatonic scales that we actually had to move our position. It will happen more than once in our diatonic scales. In fact, there'll be a scale where we move down and then back up. So this is just normal for 7-note scales. Okay. So now we're going to move up to the 5th fret and go 1st finger, 3rd finger, 4th finger. So 5th fret, 7th fret, and 8th fret. And then we're just going to finish it off on the 1st string, 5th fret, 7th fret. So we have just 1, 2, or 1, 3, index middle, or index ring only. Okay, let's go backwards. 7th fret, 5th fret, 8th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret. Let's go down a fret with your pinky on the 7th fret of the 3rd string. Ring finger on the 6th fret, 4th fret. Then down here on the 4th string, you have the 7th fret, 5th fret, 4th fret. Same thing on the next string down. This scale is not very symmetrical at all. It's going to be a hard one to learn, to memorize. 5th fret, index on the 1st fret. Hey, Eric Bozeman, are you out there? Thanks for the note yesterday, by the way. Pinky on the bottom string, and then 5th fret. So here's the whole scale again. And if I want to start on D, I'm right there. D's right there. If I want to start on B minor, yeah. Okay, let me put the little jam track on again, the George Benson jam track. Yeah, this, you can think of it as mixolydian if you think about the bottom note. I mean, yeah, mixolydian if you think about the bottom note. But they're all relative to each other, so it doesn't really matter. I could think B minor though. The only thing, if you're thinking a scale like B minor or D major or A mixolydian, you're probably going to be more likely to land on a B or a D or an A if you're thinking that scale. It's almost better to not even. I always want to go to the blues notes, so too. See, I just played a D mixolydian there. Totally not wanting to. And then there's sweet tones, like that C sharp. Woo. That's like a major 7 over the D chord, and it's a minor, it's a 9th over the B, and it's a 6th over the E minor, and it's a 3rd of the A chord. So that's one thing too. Man, that's a whole nother set of theory things. I'll give you an example of something like this, but it's a note. You can sit on one note through a chord progression. You can do this in blues. You can do this, but you can sit on one note, and that note is going to change sounds depending on the chord around it. Okay, it's just crazy. Like if I'm doing blues and I'm just sitting, that's the root. And I go, now that's the fifth, and I go here. That's the fourth. That note won't. That generally you wouldn't sit on the A when you get to the E chord in a blues, but you can because everybody knows what's coming next, the A chord. So it's like all you're doing is saying, "Hey, I'm telegraphing what's coming next." Okay. But I'll give you a great example of this. Like there was a Joe Beam song called One Note Samba. Squirrel, what squirrel? And so he would take a single note like this. See, there was a G on top of every one of those chords, and on every one of those chords, that G had a different relationship. And so it would create this really cool almost reharmonization effect. Okay, so so that A form, I'm going to hold this up again. This is the A form. This is the new scale that we're learning today. It's the second of 5 we're going to learn diatonic scales over the CAGED shapes. Okay, and so let's do it again. All right, get you ready. Your hands warmed up. Put your hand in the air, get that blood out of there. Oh, okay. Now, so start with the second finger, 5th fret, 7th fret, 4th fret, 5th, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 6, 7. Move up a fret. 5, 7, 8, 5, 7. Backwards. Yep, totally understand that, Ben. Okay, so now backwards 7, 5, 8, 7, 5. Down, and then move your hand position down. So now we're in what? Remember, 4th position. We would call this 4th position. 7, 6, 4, 7, 5, 4, 7, 5, 4, 7, 5. And I apologize if I'm going too fast for you. You can rewatch the video potentially and play along with that. You could just loop that little section if you want. It's really hard because if we were doing a one-on-one lesson, I would be tailoring the speed to the speed of the student. So I know we're all over the map here. So I can tell by some of the comments that some of you are beginners and some of you have been playing for quite a while. So now here's the other thing. So to get this scale and any of these diatonics, I didn't do this yesterday, but any of the scales, pentatonics, diatonics, to get them even more ingrained in your hands and to get them feeling more natural, you can always start to do groupings. So like groupings of 3 would be. Oops. Right, and fast it sounds. You can hear it almost becomes musical. I wouldn't recommend using that kind of mentality for soloing, because soloing, you really want to kind of think of soloing as spontaneous melody creating. You're writing melodies on the fly, okay? But learning scales gives you parameters and notes that you know are going to be good, okay? Another lesson we should start doing is, I got a million things I could do, but one would be teaching on how to figure out chords. Like if you're listening to a song, what are the chords? That was something that was very difficult for me. I could figure out notes, but trying to figure out the chord was always something else. Okay. Oh, here's something else I want to show you. We're going to revert back a little bit to the beginning of our time, and I didn't do this before, but sometimes it really certain chords show up. So, like I said, this is your D chord. Okay. So what I'm going to do is and you could probably copy. Okay. So this is D. Yep. Warm water helps. Maybe even a little salt water too. Yeah, dogs scare me. I'm sorry. I'm not a. I mean, I love dogs, but I'm always like putting my hands in my pockets when I'm walking past a dog that looks like a D7 chord. Right. This is an A form. So if you may, if you know an A7 chord, you would probably be able to see this. But D7 could be this. D7. Ah, not D plus. D7. Sorry. Okay. So that, yep, that's a D7. D major 7. Okay, with a bar, it would be starting on the fifth string. It would be fifth fret, seventh fret, sixth fret, seventh fret. Okay, you can see how I'm fingering that. This first, second, third, fourth. That's hard to do. Look. Okay, so that is called D major 7, and I use a yeah, slicing veggies. Yeah, exactly. D major 7. I always my favorite sushi chef was a student of mine, and one time he'd cut his hand really bad. Those knives are so sharp. D major 7 is this. Okay, X 5 7 6 7 5. Oh, what am I doing? 5 7 6 7 5. Okay, that's D major 7. Um, Well, the scale, it depends. I mean, if you start on a D note of the scale, it's a D major scale, it's a B minor scale. But basically, these are all the notes in this position in the key of D major. All right. So if you think about we're starting on the A, you could call this A mixolydian if you want. Okay. I'm really not getting into the mode aspect of this. I'm really just trying to show you all the scaled pentatonic at first and now diatonic in the different caged methods. So, you could call it A mixolydian, which is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, and A. Okay. Which, oops, what the heck? Why did it want to put Gary's name in there? G, A. What the heck? No. That's weird. Okay. So there, Gary, it was trying to insert your name in I hit G and A and it went Gary Schultz. And I'm like, no. So A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A is also a D major scale. If you just start on D and play the same notes, you'll end up with a D major scale. If you start on B, it's a B minor scale. If you start on C, it would be a C Locrian scale, right? No, yeah. Hey, that's not my fault, Gary. That one's not my fault. Okay. That was the computer messing me up. Okay, so but you can think of it as a scale. I'm almost would be prefer that you think of this as all the notes in this position in the key of D. And if you know your modes, then you would know that what other modes are relative to D. But that's not for us to know right now. It's not critical. And you can try to memorize it. The goal is to try to memorize this. Groups of 3. Groups of 4. You can do every other. Or you can think of it as thirds. You can just make up your own patterns and you start a pattern really small and then try to carry that on. Take a little 2, 4 note, 3 note, 5 note, 6 note pattern and then try to repeat it. Okay. And so that way you can kind of turn these scales into little mini exercises that will get you because some of those little teeny like little snippets, there's nothing wrong with right. If you did this in a solo, it would sound like you're doing an exercise. But if you do a little bit of the exercise, maybe to get you going in a line, right, in the context of a solo, groupings of 3. See, that sounds like an exercise. But if I did it like that, doesn't sound like an exercise. Still groupings of 3, but I made it more musical. 1812 overture is groupings of 4. That's true. And back to the singles chat room. Here we go. Ready, guys? I'm going to do some of those octaves of the third in it. I'm just eavesdropping on all your conversations at the jazz chat room. Smooth jazz chat room. And of course, yesterday I spent time talking about how I felt like this album Breeze and ruined jazz, and here I am jamming on it. It's still one of my favorites, though. I hope I don't get a copyright infringement for this. That would be a drag if I couldn't use this video at all. YouTube takes it down because of that. Okay, my sauce is on. I don't know if I want to know what that means. Okay, so let's see. So that's enough on that. We're gonna go to the next saucy jazz. I'm gonna go to the next scale tomorrow. So we've got 3 more scales to learn, and then we have. Then I'll probably do a big grid, like a 12, 20 fret grid, so you can see how all 5 of those scales kind of connect throughout the fretboard. I do not expect you to have all this stuff memorized. Again, keep in mind, we've learned 5 chord shapes that are completely movable. So we've learned 60 chord shapes. We've learned 5 major pentatonic scales that are completely movable. So you've really learned 60 pentatonic scales. We've learned 5, if you move them to minor, if you move them up 3 frets, and they're all the same shapes, they just become minor if you just move them up 3 frets. You've learned 5 of those, thus 60 of those. And the same thing with these diatonic scales. Everyone, this scale that I was, that we played together is D major there, but E flat major here, E major here, C major down here, F major up here. So I'll hit on Verdi. You guys are crazy. So that's totally movable. So you've learned 60, so we ultimately, when we get done with this, you can think that you've learned, you can realize that ultimately you've learned 60 chords, 60 pentatonic, 60 pentatonic, 60 diatonics. You've learned, that's like almost 80 things. So, okay, I'm supposed to tell a story. Yes. Man, you guys are reading my freaking minds. You live in a northern town? Yes, it's Ebola time. This was when 2014, I think, because I flew back to Indiana to move my mom to California. We moved because she should not be living alone. She was at that point in her life where her eyes, her ears, and her memory were so bad that, people were taking advantage of her. Like some guy came to her door and he had hammered a bunch of red flags into her trees and said, "Okay, I treated your trees. That'll be $750." And she wrote him a check for $750. It was like, are you kidding? And once that happens, and all of a sudden there's every day she was getting somebody coming to her. So everybody had to fly. My sisters flew to Indy to stay with her. My stepsister, I flew there. We were paying people to stay with her. It was just ridiculous. So we decided to move her to California, to the apartment building we lived in that I managed. So we were kind of waiting for an apartment to open up. Apartment opened up. I fly back there to help her finish packing, get the moving van packed, and bring her and then fly her back. I fly. I think I flew United LAX to Houston to Indianapolis, and in Houston I had like a 3-hour layover. So, and this is in the height of the Ebola thing, and people, like anybody who got stomach, because Ebola started with the stomach flu, and so anybody who got sick on an airplane, they were like freaking out. Everybody thought they had Ebola and they were going to all die. And so um, we we basically so I flew to Houston. I got 3 hours to kill. I'm like, hey, I'm in Texas. I should get some barbecue. And there was this looked like what was really good barbecue joint um, in the at the airport, and I I got the stand like I got the top thing on the menu, the pork barbecue, and I love coleslaw, so I always love to see what people do with coleslaw. I love coleslaw. If I don't know if you do barbecue sandwich and put coleslaw on the sandwich, it's like yes. I'm dying. Oh man, now I'm aching for that. Now I gotta get shoot. I'm gonna have to do some Grubhub. So anyway, I get this, and literally within 20 minutes, I was in the bathroom, and I'm not like it wasn't upper intestinal, it was lower intestinal, if you know what I mean. And all I had prior to that was a banana in Starbucks in the morning. So I know it wasn't that. I'm not going to get sick from a banana. And I felt fine until that. And I finished my lunch. I'm walking around the airport, and all of a sudden I'm like, uh-oh. And I run to the bathroom, and I had this lower intestinal like craziness. And I'm like, okay, that was weird. And I still got about an hour before my flight takes off. And I go to my gate and I say, hey, I think I got food poisoning. I told the gate attendant, I said, I think I got food poisoning, but I don't want to get on the plane and get sick and have people freak out. So when's the next flight can you move me to the next flight? And the next flight was booked, but then the flight, 2 flights later to Indianapolis was available. So I had to hang around for another 8 hours. But I said, but maybe I'll feel better. Let me just hang back and I'll be the last one to take my seat. And they were like, they really appreciated that because they were also kind of stressed about it. And people were like, and like, anybody who got airsick it was assumed they had Ebola. And this was in Texas where the first or second Ebola case actually happened. This was in Texas. So people were even more sensitive and highly aware to that. So they were really the flight attendants or the gate attendants were really happy that I was willing to do that. And they'd say, "Oh, that's really cool." And I said, "No, no worries." And I'm like, "Okay, I think I feel good. I think I'm feeling fine." And they said, "Well, go on down. We phoned ahead, and they've got a glass of cold water for you at the gate. I mean, at the as soon as you get on the plane." I go, "Oh, that's great." So I get on the plane, and they hand me the glass of cold water. And I hate water. I hate the taste of water, cold water. I mean, generally, if I'm going to do water, it's going to be room temperature. If I'm playing tennis, okay. If I play an hour and a half of tennis in the hot sun, then the water fountain, whatever. I just don't like the taste of water. It just makes me feel like I'm sick. Like I don't know. It's like drinking. I don't know if it's like you ever drink 7 Up, and it's like, oh man, that's what my mom gave me when I was sick as a kid. And so anytime you have 7 Up, it's like, oh no, I feel awful. So I get out of the plane and I just chug that water, not thinking. It hits the back of my throat. And now I'm like, oh, now I'm going to throw up. And I'm like, no. And I run off the plane and I get off the plane. And unfortunately, I managed to keep it down, but I did not throw up. But it was like, okay, so I had a club pass. So I was able to go hang out at the club. And what's crazy is when I got in that club, this is funny. He's not here. I don't know. He's not watching. But I was just like logging onto my YouTube channel, and I had like 200 subscribers. But that day, I got 800 more. I got 1,000. I had 1,000 subscribers at the end of that day, and it was because there was a kid in Sweden who went on Reddit and was like, "Why does his channel not have more views? He's a really good teacher," and I may have already been over 1,000, but he got me like 1,000 new subscribers in one day just by posting one Reddit post. And then there was this giant thread. And of course I log into that thread. So I'm also sitting, in there. And the great thing about the United Club is you can have free drinks and there's food and all this stuff. So I go to the bartender and I ask him, is there anything you can recommend for upset stomach? And he said, I'd heard red wine, so I got a glass of red wine, and that seemed to help. And then he also did, what was it called? It was like a dark liquor, but it wasn't like whiskey or anything like that. It was something I can't remember. It was almost more like a medicine. And he gave me that, and boy, that really helped too. So by the end of my 8-hour stay in the club, in United Club, I was feeling really good. I got on a flight and got to Indianapolis and brought my mom home. So that's my Ebola story. That's a pretty lame Ebola story. It really just stemmed from me not liking the taste of water. Just like, and everybody's like, oh, you got to drink lots of water. And I'm like, there's water in coffee. Oh, that doesn't count. There's water in milk. That doesn't count. There's water in Diet Coke. That doesn't count. I'm like, well, if I never drink water, and I only drink those things, and according to some people, I never drink water. I should be dehydrated. Liquor. It was like it was. What was this? I took a picture of it, but I don't think I have that on my phone anymore. It was weird, but it was a weird, and he put it. I can't remember what he mixed it with, but hey, Deb, you're just in time for the end of the Ebola story. I noticed cases in Italy have kind of flattened out, and in Paris too, or in France, Spain a little bit. Talking about world diseases. No, yeah, because I took a drink. You have to hit your face. Okay, everybody want to take a drink? Here we go. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You can all take drinks now. That's our drinking game. If every time I touch my face, you have to take a shot of water. Or, yeah, that's what people tell me. Water's the only thing that counts. But the thing is that I probably went 5 years without ever having a sip of water. So I should be completely dehydrated. Yeah, I mean, well, alcohol dries you out too. I can have one beer and I'm like dizzy. It doesn't take much. I'm a real lightweight. I didn't really actually start drinking until I was in my 50s, which is crazy. But both my parents, I don't know if they were alcoholics, but they drank a lot, and I kind of didn't want to go down that path. So I kind of avoided it for most of my life. And then I started drinking a glass of red wine. Like we would go to a nice restaurant and I'd get a glass of red wine because it's supposed to be good for your heart. I'm thinking, sure, I'll get a glass of red wine. Well, what would happen is, and you all know this, okay? You all know this because you know me. But I would go for I get a glass of red wine, and sometimes in restaurants they give you a pretty solid glass, pretty solid. And for someone who doesn't drink, that's a lot. And I would be in the restaurant and I just start, and because we walked, this is in Pasadena, so we could walk to any restaurant. And I would just be sitting there going, oh, yeah, hey, baby, how you doing? And so instead of like thinking of 12 things at a time, it would literally get down to about 3 things at a time. It would get me actually focus me more where I could, not be so distracted. And so I find that Beth really liked one wine Tom. She really liked, she would laugh, and I would kind of be like, hey, yeah, how you doing? So so I do like that aspect of it. I do feel like it's something that every now and then, just to take the edge off. If I were drinking a 12 case every day, I might be worried. Beth would be worried. One wine Tom. So, and it's been a while. I mean, I think we had a beer the other day. We had some fish tacos, and man, now a beer just tastes really good with fish tacos. In fact, we didn't get Corona, but we got the Trader Joe's version of Corona, and it just tastes so good with the with fish tacos. So I had to have one of those. But other than that, it's probably it could go 2 weeks between a glass of wine or a beer or something like that. It's just not something that even comes to mind for the most part. Yeah, exactly. Mark, that's exactly my point. I see 12 squirrels normally. If I have a glass of red wine, I only see 3 squirrels. You know what I'm saying here. And here's the thing. It still tastes like medicine to me. And I have friends, I envy them, my friends that are wine collectors, but I hate going to their house because they're always like, oh, you got to try this wine. And I'm like, dude, $2 Chuck is going to taste just as good as that. And then they'll pour it for me and I'll drink it and I'll be like, actually, $2 Chuck tastes better to me. And they're like, oh no, this is a really good wine. And I'm like, they're telling me I just haven't tried the right wine. And I'm like, yeah, it all tastes pretty much like cough syrup to me, but I like the byproduct. I like the effect of it. So it's worth, putting up with the taste. Beer, on the other hand, has gotten to the point where it actually kind of tastes good. when I go every September, I go to and hopefully we'll do it this year. Gosh, oh man, I hope we're back to normal in September. Hopefully we'll. But I've been going to Louisville the last 3 years with to play guitar for the Muhammad Ali Humanitarian Awards, and it's just a fun gig. And they take good care of me, and they put us up, and they pay us really well, and it's a lot of fun. And get to the governor of Kentucky is there, and the mayor of Louisville's there, and it's kind of a really cool hang. And the but there the thing is bourbon. Oh my gosh. So we will go to bourbon bars after the show. And there are some bars there that were there during Prohibition. They're called, speakeasies. And you actually have to go downstairs, and they like have the hidden door, and you have to open the hidden door and go in there. It's really cool. And so, we will hit those after we do that. And one bourbon, and for one thing, it burns like crazy. And they'll be like, they won't let me take my wallet out, which is, great, fine with a musician, and they will like say, oh no, try this one. And I'm like, whoa, and they have they'll have glasses with the one ice cube, the giant ice cube. And they put it on a table, and I went like this and drank it, and I went, whoa. And they go, and my friend says, dude, let the ice melt a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, wow, this, I guess this tastes good, right? And they go, yeah, that's $60 a glass. I'm like, wait, what? $60 for a glass? In fact, the bartender literally stood on the bar to get to the bottles up there on the top shelf. And then I went, is that why they call it top shelf? And he goes, well, yeah, why do you think they call it top shelf? I'm like, in California, I don't think they put the best bottles at the top shelf because of earthquakes, but I understand you might do that in Kentucky. So, okay, I got to catch up here. Cooking with wine, doesn't heating alcohol burn off most of the alcohol? So it's not like you're going to get drunk having a pasta with wine in it or anything like that. Yeah, it totally calms the nerves. I mean, if you're having to drink 10 beers a day, to calm your nerves, you may have to talk to a friend. You got to be drinking to eat fish tacos. Yeah. Do you play better or worse? I played different. I don't think I play better or worse. I have friends that would say, if you smoke weed, you'll play better. I don't think that's true, but you might have different ideas. I remember when I was a kid, my mom would take me to this horrible neighborhood and drop me off at this jam house where all these like 20-year-old druggies and, would jam, and they were really good musicians. And I'm like 13, 14. I show up with my Les Paul, and I'm jamming and, playing like Zeppelin and stuff. And these guys are like looking at me like, wait a minute, you're pretty good. And then we'd sit down in a circle, and they'd hand a joint around. And I was like, I didn't want to do it. So I just passed it to the next person. And they never once said anything. They were just like, oh, cool. We don't want to make this kid smoke weed because he's actually a really good guitar player. We don't want to mess it up. So they just said, and more for us, I don't think people are going to be in the coronavirus era going to be handing around joints, though. I don't think that's going to be a thing. Yeah, Pappy's Bourbon. It was, I'm trying to think. There was Glen something, and there's multiple different expenses of Glen bourbon. I got some bourbon the other day, just Evans, just the cheap, like Evans. It was only like $9 for a pretty big bottle, because it's great if you're trying to get to sleep. A little bit of that, it doesn't hurt. Okay, I got to catch up on some of these comments. Mad Dog 2020 for Tom. Oh man. Oh, let's see. I had $60 bottles that don't taste as good as a 10. I agree. And I think some of the wine stuff, I have a friend, they have a vineyard, and their bottles are so expensive, and I've never bought one of them. It was like $240 for a bottle, and I'm just like, I can't do it. Sorry. I'd love to support you, but if you're charging $240 for a bottle, you don't need the support. You're clearly making money. Yeah, Mark, I think the same thing. I also know that viruses and flus and things like that tend to, as the climate gets warmer, and we've had a very cool winter. We usually will get a week or two of 90-degree weather in February or January. We have not had that. So we're supposed to hit high 70s and maybe low 80s next week, which will be great. I think that'll slow the virus down. Also, my thing is that all the projections are coming from scientists and from doctors, and almost always worst case scenario, and none of them take into effect any measures being taken. So, like the quarantining thing, I mean, seriously, if we never leave the house, as I say, we never leave the house and we never have anyone come here, it's impossible for us to get it. So, and so many people are doing similar. Now we're leaving the house to go for walks, and Beth is going to the store, and there's where you're exposed potentially. Not during walks. I don't, imagine that. But the other thing is the war effort that has been put into finding a vaccine, into finding different cures, into experimenting, and even freeing up the regulations to allow people to try drugs. That one guy in Florida that went ahead and did the oxychloroquine thing, that he basically had said goodbye to his wife and 3 kids, and there was nothing they could do. They gave him that. The next day, he was almost 100%. It was like crazy. Now, it doesn't work on everybody. Here's another thing that if you look at the Diamond Princess numbers, it's fascinating because here you have essentially a petri dish or a petri dish. I'm not sure how it's said, where you had only 17% of the people on that ship. And this was before they knew it was a thing. So they were all touching handrails. They were all touching plates and sitting at tables and sitting around the pool together and sharing the jacuzzi together. And the staff and everybody, only 17% of the people of those 3,811 people on board got the virus. Okay. So that ship you could think of as a microcosm of the macrocosm of the world. Only 17% of the people on that ship got the disease. Of those, only 8 people died out of 3,800. So and of the passengers, over a third of them were over 70. So in that vulnerable area. So I consider that a very encouraging sign that even in that context, I kind of have a suspicion because there's a lot of people. I have a friend, Andrew Watt, who got it really bad, had to go to the hospital. And he tried to get tested, but they wouldn't test him. And a lot of the reason they were having problems with the test is because the FDA or the FDA, I think it is, or not the CDC. I think it was the FDA was not approving labs. And what they did in like New York, I think they just approved every lab to do the test. And if they weren't approved to do the test, they couldn't do the test, and that's just kind of ridiculous. So in New York, they kind of did that, and so that's why they have the numbers are so much higher in New York. Largely is because they're testing. Cuomo said they're doing 16,000 a day at least. That's by far more per capita than they were in South Korea, which is kind of lifted up as the model of testing. And that's just in New York alone. California, I don't think they're doing a lot of testing. And I just saw that they now have a new test that's coming out that will be a finger prick, and I'm hoping that they can do a test for antibodies. But my point is the crazy thing is on that ship, only 17% of the people got the virus. And I know people that have the virus and they were around other people when they more than likely were contagious, and those other people haven't gotten it. So I'm wondering if we're going to see something like an 80% of the population either can't get it or just not getting it because they're either not exposed great enough or because, I don't know, maybe they have resistance to it or something. I mean, that would be the hope. So there may be a natural resistance to it. I would love for an antibody test to come out. I think I may have already had it. My son, Alex, may have very well had it. I'm sure there's a lot of you that thought you had it because there are, something like 80% of people that have it may have it be asymptomatic, may not even have symptoms or such mild symptoms that he didn't have. But I had really bad diarrhea with a low-grade fever, and not really bad diarrhea. I had diarrhea sorry, no, this is a great conversation. Anybody eating out there? I had diarrhea with a low-grade fever for a good 10 days, and kind of an anxiety and a pressing on my chest. Could take deep breaths, no problem like that. We've had bad smog in California where if you take a deep breath, you cough. So I'm familiar with that issue, especially in the 80s, where sometimes you couldn't even see across the street. The smog was so bad. And in California in the 60s and 70s, they'd have what was called smog days where kids weren't even allowed to go to school or leave the house. So that kind of thing is, being quarantined in a home in California is not, this is not uncharted territory. So I find that uh, I'm curious. I think that that Diamond Princess cruise can be a really good study because everybody on that cruise ship got tested. And so, like I said, they only had it only 17% were positive out of 3,800 people. So yeah, and my hope is for an antivirus, I mean, an antibody test, because I really feel like, heck, if you can have a card that says I've already had it, or one that says I have the antibodies and I can't get it, then why not be able to go back to work? Why not be able to have a restaurant open for people that have already had the disease, including the workers? I think that would be, a great thing to do. So there might even be people, um, yeah, antiviral elderberries. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. I think, uh, what you might say holistically to kind of reduce your increase your immunity. I've been drinking a lot of vitamins. I mean, been drinking a lot of orange juice because it just tastes good. We've been eating oranges every day. It just tastes good for some reason. I really think sometimes your body is craving the thing that's going to protect it. Um, and so you kind of just have to try to listen to those. I mean, we had steak last night and it tasted good, and we had salads, and so we've been eating good. Um, yeah, smog days, it's crazy. It's weird. When I first moved, in fact, when Beth moved to California, Pasadena is right up against the Mount Wilson. The peak of Mount Wilson, I think, is 6,600 feet. And I mean, for years driving down the freeway in Pasadena, I would just stare at the mountains because from Indiana, that was just like looking at mountains was just like, wow, look at that's you just they would steal they would just make you couldn't take your eyes off them. It's just amazing. But Beth was here for 6 months when she first moved to California and didn't know there were mountains there because of the smog. You couldn't see them. It's crazy. So yeah, yeah, vitamin D if you can get out in the sun. We went for a good walk today, although to be honest, we were getting a little warm, so we were walking on the shady side of the street. But we're looking forward to next week because we may be laying out by the pool. Um, and yeah, and also the getting out in the sun I think just really good for preventing cabin fever. Also, schedule. I think this has been great for me. I don't know you guys. I'm glad you're there because I think if there was just one of you there, I'd still be doing this. But this is really good for me because it really, and I actually got a lot of work to do, but it really kind of helps me feel like I'm still being social. When I'm with my friends, I do all the talking anyway. so so this is no different for me. Um, Yeah, I actually have an over 50 vitamin tablet that I take. And I take iron every day because I was had anemia and didn't know it, and was just waking up. I'd get 8 9 hours of sleep, and I'd wake up like I hadn't slept 1 hour, and I was like something was wrong. So I went and got blood work done. Had a lot of blood work done because I went ahead and just said, "Look, can you do a bunch of other tests?" And I paid for it. And I just said I want to, get all these different tests because in my family cancer is rampant, and so I wanted to get all those tests and everything. I have a really high PSA count, which I had a prostate biopsy. They found no cancer, but my PSA count is off the charts, and so all those things. I had all those tests done again. Um, and found the only thing that was wrong was that my iron level was really low. And so he said, no, just take iron every day. And so that's uh, yes, donate blood if you can. They're having real troubles with this. Although I imagine there's a lot less accidents now because nobody's driving. So I imagine there's some things that are hospitals are seeing less, some things less than they normally see because there's a lot less commerce and activity going on. But there's probably other things that are increasing. So hopefully not abuse. Um, my wife and I get along fine. So she hasn't hit me once since we've been quarantined. Chemtrails. Yeah, less chemtrails. That's true. Um, yes, I do. I still work. I was working yesterday. I'm going to be working today on some more music for TV. I've got a pop artist that I'm working with and writing guitar hooks for him to write over. So um, there's yeah, I right today I don't have anything that anybody's paying me to do. It's all speculative at this point, but the last 2 weeks I've been working a lot for all the composers that I work for. The live gigs have dried up. My church gig they're still doing services, but they've limited the band to 4 members so that they can make sure there's no more than 10 people on stage for the rule of no more than. So they're still filming services, but I'm letting my son do that right now. So because he needs the income, because most of his income was for live gigs. So I'm letting him do that because he needs the money more than I do. So, yeah, yeah, 30. So yeah, we're coming up on 33 years of marriage. So yeah, yeah, I can, I can see I can see a frying pan with my from behind. So yeah, it's not a problem. What denomination? Actually, it's non-denominational. Basically, I think it's yeah, I don't. It's just Shepherd Church in Porter Ranch, and so it's kind of like a non-denominational church. And we have what's interesting is we normally on a normal weekend we have 10,000 people. So mega churches, and we have 10,000 people show up. And when they went to online only, and they were kind of worried, but they've actually have about 20,000 people every week watch online. And so we've almost doubled the size of because it's a very media centric church. It's very Hollywood. There's a lot of people that worked in the industry, cameramen, grips, electricians, things like that, producers, line producers, all that. A lot of those kind of people go to our church. We have actors too. Oh, you've been watching Shepherd the last couple of weeks? Yeah, and one of the things that Dudley did is he's just sticking to his sermon series. He's not talking about this. And my niece who lives in Arizona, her church is just talking about coronavirus nonstop. And she's like, she's a nurse. She goes, I deal with it all day. I don't want to listen to it. So she started watching our church, and so she's really liking it because they're not really dealing with that. They're just talking about whatever the sermon series is. He's actually the sermon series is called 2020, and having 2020 vision with God. So it's funny. That's the series. I think it's 4 or 6 weeks or something. I can't remember, but yeah, the thing is, yeah, we could have volunteers. I mean, I have people approach me all the time saying they would be willing because I booked the band. But we really have the same musicians every week. It's me, Pee Wee Hill, and Michiko Hill. Pee Wee and Michiko, their daughter Judith Hill. If you look her up, she's an amazing singer. She sang with Michael Jackson, and she had a record that she produced with Prince. So she became very good friends with Prince, unfortunately before he died, and right before he died. So that was really sad. Her parents are the bass player and keyboard player at my church, and then Walter Rodriguez is the drummer, and he plays on movie soundtracks. So anything that Michael Giacchino writes, was it David Holmes? I forget. He works for a lot of composers, so he did like he did like dang, I can't think of some of the movies now, but all the Disney stuff he's done. He did Frozen and Frozen 2. That's Walter's on that. And so he's a percussionist. So they may have 8 to 15 percussionists on any score. And everybody has a different role. So yeah, Judith's sound is very much like Prince. Very old school. She grew up, her godmother is Rose Stone, who is Sly Stone's sister. And Rose Stone is, and I don't know if she still is, but she was the choir director at Church on the Way in Van Nuys, or the gospel choir director. But Rose is I love Rose. And Sly Stone, Pee Wee Michiko toured with Sly for years and recorded like 3 of his albums at their house. So Judith grew up with Sly Stone in the house, basically. And then, yeah, so the band is really good. And Sheila Gonzalez is the sax player and plays second keys at church. And she tours with Dweezil Zappa. And she is one of the best musicians I've ever known. She can play sax and keys at the same time. But what's crazy is she'd never heard of Frank. She'd really never gotten into Frank Zappa, didn't know any Frank Zappa tunes. And 10 years ago, when she auditioned for Zappa, or for Dweezil, they were doing the Dweezil plays Zappa. Okay, you guys can take a drink now. I touched my face. She went, she got the gig and had to memorize like 70 Frank Zappa tunes. I mean, that's not easy. Those songs are crazy hard. In fact, they may have memorized more than that. But she probably memorized over 100 over the last 10 years because they changed the set every year. Well, her tour got canceled, so she's stuck back here in LA. But anyway, Sheila Gonzalez is a great musician. Thumbs up. Ick. Water. Blech. I mean, I don't mind vitamin water. If it's got low flavor in it, I'm good. When I go to the fridge after 9 p.m. instead of snacking, I drink water. Yeah, always good to try to drink a big glass of fluids or water right before a big meal or before a meal. Fills up your stomach, kind of fools you into eating less. Um, yeah, Gary, that's awesome. Let's see. Yeah, so but anyway, our church really likes to have musicians. They really want us to be able to read music because we do a lot of that. So we'll do a specials and things like that. So Michiko does all the charts and she writes some pretty hard charts sometimes. So like the preludes, we tend to have to read music for that. So everybody in the band is really good readers, and a lot of volunteers wouldn't be. That wouldn't be something they would prioritize. So they really want to keep the level, and they have the budget for it, but they want to keep the musicianship level there. And there are times where having really good musicians in that context, having good musicians around really will save you in those times when there's a train wreck or a singer comes in too early or comes in too late, and everybody just finds the singer, within a bar. Yeah, Judith Hill is in 20 Feet from Stardom. In fact, she got an Oscar for that. She actually has an Oscar because she was in that. So. Yeah, we do. Yeah, and we're probably about 8 hours every weekend. Of course, I've got the next few weeks off, so I'm kind of enjoying it. One of the problems with doing that is when I have to go there on Saturday. I'm like trying to work on Saturday, and I know I have to leave my studio, so that makes it hard sometimes to start projects or start ideas or things like that. So this is nice. Right now, every day is pretty much a clean slate, and I can. Other than this, I've scheduled this early enough for me that I know that I can do a bunch of stuff afterwards. So this isn't really hindering me at all. But it has been an hour and 22 minutes. So I can't believe it. But we are starting to lose people. So, so yeah, somebody asked if I would do the always other song. I got to do a lesson for that maybe, but anyway, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I will see you tomorrow to do the next scale, and we'll hopefully knock out the next three in the next 3 days, and then we can see the big picture on that. And then I'll try to figure out something else to talk about. Get off this caged method thing. Because really, between all these screenshots you've got tons to work on. Okay, I'll leave the chat up for a minute. Okay. Mark, we do traditional praise and worship. Unfortunately, I used to do some of my songs when I led worship there back in the early 2000s. But there's nobody in our church that's a good enough writer to write original music. So there's so many great songs out there. So we'd like to choose the best of the best. Anyway, okay, everybody stay safe. Maybe get some fresh air, vitamin D, get some sun. Okay, I'll leave the chat up for a little bit.